Hello, Boris Praversham here. Week 2 starts on the Whitelist server. In between episodes I've done some housekeeping and quite a lot of grinding. As you can see, all of the ships that were once here are mostly no more, just left kind of this skeleton outline of the systems that were in it, because I'm going to maybe reuse some of it, although looking at it again now, probably not. Most of this in the middle is going to go. I'm just going to keep this solar array there. Not for any particular reason, I just want there to be a reminder of what it once was. So I'm going to build off of the remains of the captured ships. This station is to become a refinery. Hopefully I can attract Sal once he gets up into space and begins mining quite a bit. I can attract her to come and dump her ore into here and have it all refined nicely with a nice little system. Nothing too complex, just a nice little simple system that turns ore into ingots and pumps it out the other side. And then down on the surface, somewhere down there, we're going to have our little shipbuilding yard. This session I'm going to try and get the majority of this station kind of sketched out, so that by the end of the week and the end of the episode we can have a functioning station here. The first thing I'm going to do is to grind down this solar array and replenish the ones over there that are missing. While I do that, a couple of little pieces of news. Firstly, Merry, the Merry Gamer, is on the server. He is a special guest. We planned on inviting a few others onto the server this season. It started with icing, a little bit more on that in a minute, but now Merry's here as well. If you don't know Merry, we originally met through the Merry Friends series is what we called it. We all had different names. That's how Sal and I met, and Merry has just been interested in space engineers since then. He got back into the game himself over the past couple of weeks, and then Sal invited him on here, so it'll be good to play with him again. Although I haven't talked to him yet. I have no idea what he's doing, but you can find out by, of course, going to his YouTube channel. I believe he's recording right now. The second little bit of news, I had to pause there for a second to find the GPS location, is Drunk Spider-Man. He is on the server, except he spawned in space 5,700 kilometers away, and in no particular relation to any of us. So there's Mars over there, here's Earth, here's the Moon. He's just way, way out there. So he's going to have to do a little bit of building first to get all the way back here. Minty did manage to spawn in on the Moon, but he was having a few issues with lag, I believe. I don't think he's played that much. And the final bit of news, while I fail to turn this round, that has happened in between episodes, is that icing is now officially a Nidd tuber. It's not something we've done for quite some time. The last one was Almond, except he kind of accidentally fell into becoming a Nidd tuber. It wasn't a full, proper process like we would normally do. Icing is the first one since Minty to have gone through that. We went through, collected all the votes up, no one objected, everyone likes playing with him, so he is officially a Nidd tuber from now on. We'll be collaborating a lot more. He'll be on, I'm assuming we'll have a season 6 of this server eventually. He'll be on that. Look forward to playing with him more. His streams have been really good, so I hope that if you're watching this, it's also because you've been watching him. There is a little bit of confusion around what this server is and all of the names, and I completely understand. We recently had a conversation about whether we should change the group's name. We didn't really get anywhere with it. I kind of predicted that was going to be the case when we started talking about it, but I think we kind of like the name that we have. We never chose it. A little bit of a history lesson. So the Nidd originally started as well, I had two different ideas for a gaming group. One was gaming related. It was the Nidd as it is now, a nice little community full of nice people who just want to play games together. And I had another hobby of making videos. At the time it was educational videos, hence the piston tutorial, but I made gaming videos before. I made various little comedy things. It was my hobby, and I wanted to find a group along the lines of some other groups that are fairly well known on YouTube, but with their own flair. I just wanted to find people who had the same hobby of making video, I don't really like the word, but content. Essentially YouTube. And at the start, the Nidd only had 12 people in it, and it was kind of both at the same time. It was both hobbies rolled into one, because there wasn't enough people, and I never thought there would be. I never thought that there'd be more than a couple of dozen people in the Nidd. So I thought, this is as good as I'm going to get. Not everyone is here for both sides of my hobby, but I would make do. That's a very bad way of putting it. I wasn't just making do. I was very happy that everyone was there, but I hadn't given much thought to the fact that most of the people who were playing also didn't want to record, or vice versa. So it got fairly popular fairly quickly, and that's why this server is called the Nidd Whitelist, because originally it started as a server that was whitelisted only to the Nidd, and the people that I was adding to the Nidd, because it was an invite-only group at that time, were people that I knew would get that it was a recording-friendly area. At the time, I couldn't stream, and streaming wasn't as big a thing as it is now. So to be part of the Nidd meant that you could get on this server. Then I realized that not only were there enough people in general, there was a critical mass of people to sustain both hobbies, but that I wanted the Nidd to be quite a bit more than what it was. It wasn't really fulfilling what I had in mind, this little invite-only group. There had to be... YouTubers and streamers are just the worst. They're very self-centered, selfish people, and they're not that fun to play with. So I then split the groups, and the invite-only section became the Nidd tubers, and then the Nidd was opened up to everyone. The only little problem with that is that this server kept its name. It became a little quirk of history, and is still called the Nidd Whitelist, even though it's not a Nidd server. It's a Nidd tuber server. This is needlessly pedantic and complicated, I know, but this is the way that it's worked out. Also, the Nidd tubers don't have an official role in the Nidd. They're not officially related. It's not like the official YouTubing group of the Nidd. That's not what it is. I would say that the Nidd tubers are kind of like a local amateur theatre group, or a band that plays out of a garage. We're just people with a silly hobby that like doing the same thing, and we're all just gigging together on this server. And in the same way that not anybody can just walk up on stage and join a band, everyone has to be able to work together and have a similar creative approach. So that's why it's invite only, and it's not related directly to the Nidd despite the name, hence why we have had conversations about changing the name in order to avoid the completely understandable confusion, because every time we start the server and all through, Anubis hasn't even been on the server, and he's had people asking him to play, and I've had a few as well asking if they can join this server, or just outright assuming that if you're part of the Nidd then you can join the server. That's not really how it works. There is a Nidd Space Engineer server now. Kay has been nice enough to set one up. It's called Niddverse, Niddverse. If you search that in the lobby, you should find it. Right, as ever, I've talked far too long about something that is not really that important. There's been far too much navel gazing going on. Let's keep going with this build. One thing that I didn't mention is that Almond went down to the Earth to help out Mir and Sal, who are having some problems getting into space. They very much want to get into space because they've discovered what the Earth is like. And Almond has asked me to build this hydrogen pod up for him to make it a little bit easier. So what I'm going to do, I've built it up, and then what I'm going to do is attach this little grinding ship that Almond made. I'm going to attach it onto this and then just drop it. Just drop it down on that GPS location over there. So first I just have to make sure that there are some parachutes in here, and then we'll merge it. Alright, here we go. They're connected. Parachutes are in. A little bit of ice for him to be nice. And now we've just got to fly it down there. This is going to take a while. We are hurtling towards the Earth at 100 meters a second, needlessly, but that'll make it more fun. That coordinate down on the Earth there, that's about 56 kilometers from me right now, that is where Almond is at. And with one click of the button, I'm going to throw this pod at him. That seemed dangerous. Okay, slow down now. Oh, that was closer than it needed to be. Off it goes. I hope that works. So, slight problem. I just spent the last 40 minutes building that little hydrogen pod and delivering it instead of working on this station for this video. In the process, I needed to grind down the parachute hatches, which had the auto deploy setting on them, but once I ground them down and replaced them in a place where I could reach the conveyor door so I could put the canvas inside, all the settings reset, including removing that auto deploy setting. So what I just did was throw a bunch of steel at a planet at 100 meters a second for absolutely no reason. As you can see from this screenshot that Almond has sent me, pretty much all that's left is a beacon so that he could find where it had crashed, which was helpful, I guess. So I basically just sent him some debris and a crater, which was very nice of me. That's the sort of person I am. I'm a team player. This is a cargo container in more ways than one. I'm going to be using it this season in the same way that we use shipping containers in the real life. This is a generic size, like a universal standard that Icing and I are going to follow. I don't know about the others, but so far this has just been a little project that I've worked with Icing on. Icing built this, so there's a connector and merge block on 3 sides, battery to power it, and a bit of shielding around the sides. So this is going to be kind of like plug and play storage. Instead of doing like what this ship has, where it's got the cargo containers built into a fixed system, this is something that I've toyed with on previous seasons, but never really went all in with it. But as I was saying, instead of building the cargo containers into the system fixed like this, they are going to be plugged in. So you use like a little ship, a little crane ship, connect onto it, and then just drop it into each of the bays. So that way when you want to move cargo, you don't connect it up, you move the container out entirely. Now, of course, not every ship is going to have this. I'm not going to be I doubt this ship will last much longer, to be honest. I'll probably grind it down at some point, but I don't think I'm going to incorporate it in absolutely every ship, but I am going to on every station, important station, including this one. And eventually the plan is to make some sort of automated transport to Mars, but I'm not going to talk too much about that in case that doesn't work out, because as we've seen this episode, anything can happen and I could be swept away in a completely different direction. But for now, the plan is on every station to be plugging these cargo containers into the side, so if we need to change it up, if we need to move things out, we just pull it out and put it into a ship to move it. It might not be quite as efficient as just plugging your ship into the side of a station and pulling things out like the game intends you to, but it certainly is more fun, I think. It is a couple of days later, about 4 hours of gameplay has transpired, and I'm not going to get too much into this system that I'm building at the moment because I'm obviously not finished. Sal and Mir have arrived. They blasted off from the planet. They turned up, and Sal has immediately started retrofitting the budget space butt. The first thing, of course, is getting rid of the ridiculous connector in the middle. Although I did kind of like it. That was a nice little quirk. It made it almost impossible to dock. Over here, this is what I'm going to be doing at the moment. I would explain a lot more about what's happening, but I'm kind of recording at the wrong time, so it's a little bit loud. I'm just in a little bit of a quiet window. I'm going to try and get this little bit done. I have made 6 of these little cargo modules. This one is colored green because Mir asked me why all these dumpsters were over here floating, so now they're called dumpsters. So I have built 6 dumpsters. 5 of them are going to be for ingots. They're going to be ingot storage, and this last one is going to be for materials like components. The ores are going to be stored in there and refined elsewhere, but I'll get into that later. All I'm going to do now is try and get these into their bays. This used to be difficult. Merge blocks used to never work properly. I think they do now. So far I've not had any problems with them, but just in case, I'm going to record clicking them on. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. That wasn't me. This is why I have accidents. That was all lag. Oh no. There we go. Now hopefully this ship is powerful enough. Ooh, there we go. That's one down. Everything has actually worked. Now just 5 more.
No fuel.
Another couple of days has gone by and I've gotten a fair amount done. Almost all of the systems are done. All that's left now is the aesthetic work, which will hopefully be what I'm doing next week. So I'm going to try and quickly get through all this system, explain to you what's happening here. It's not very complicated, but to recap, this is a refinery, so the purpose of it is to have someone go out on a drilling ship such as that, bring back a whole bunch of ores, put them into this line. Now don't worry about any of the coloring or lighting here, that's all going to change. It goes into this line, this is the in line, brings it into a couple of holding containers here, so nothing ever really stays in there. I've got 2 for the symmetry really, but also just in case there's an extra large load. So whatever you drop in there is in the system, you don't get it back. Well, you do, but it might not be in the original state. Then, if it's ores, it goes down on these lines. Again, I didn't need two, it was just for symmetry. Goes down into this unnecessary amount of refineries. I almost certainly don't need this many, but I figured if we get a couple of loads at once, people are going to expect their stuff very quickly. I mean, this entire station is for this, so I might as well make it efficient. And of course on the back of those are the yield modules to get as much out of those ores as possible. Then, see how it's still linked there, there's no sorters in between there, so the ores can flow back up through here. Well, there'll be ingots now once they're processed. And this line goes off, that's the ingot line, and this one is the component line. So the components all go across this line and into this one dumpster. Only the one for the components, I don't anticipate on people making a lot of things here. That is for other stations. And then if we go back over here, this is the ingot line. In fact, it breaks off back this way as well. So these two are for ingots and those three as well. I am thinking of adding a second set of bays underneath here, so the lines will just extend off of these, just daisy chain them down. So that way there can be some empty cargo slots. That'll be for a future project. So these are all ingots, and then out of the back here is the bottom line, and this one runs back up and out, and also that's the out. If you ever want to get ingots or anything out of this station, that's where you park. And then also it runs back up here into these three assemblers if you do need to assemble something. This line back here just goes into the existing systems. In a minute I'm going to reroute this from this bottom line down here up to this top line into these holding cargo containers, and then that will take everything all through that and sort them into the containers. Before I do that and possibly mess everything up though, I'm going to put some of each of these into this container here just to show that it is all working. So the components should now be down in this module, which they are, and then the ingots should start from this one first because this is the shortest line to this one. So it should be in this one here, which it is. That's good. And then as we fill them up, the overflow should go across each of them. Although I am a little bit worried. See this one here, this connector. The name is connector B1. That's the B1 bay. In here. You see that there is a whole bunch of gravel in there. I have found a use for gravel. So this is a workaround. The game obviously doesn't intend you to be doing this sort of silly thing. It intends you just to connect your ships up and then use the conveyor system, rather than this clunky, silly shipping container system. I have found that the sorter, as it brings things into this conveyor, it dumps them in here instead of down in here. Now, if anyone watching can think of a way to make it bypass this connector without having to put a sorter in here to pull everything through, I would be very interested. At the moment, my workaround is to fill that full of gravel so that nothing can get in there, it just bypasses it and goes to the next available container. What I think is going to happen next, theoretically, is that when this cargo container fills up, it's going to fill up that connector, and then that connector, and then maybe even that connector. I am really hoping to not have to fill up each of these with 8,000 kilograms of gravel, because that would seem a little inefficient to be lugging around all of that. So if you can think of a better way of doing it, then I would be interested indeed. If not, then I guess we're going the gravel route. But to find out if that's the case, I'm going to rework the old conveyor line I showed you before to take all of our existing stuff and sort them into this new silly system. Alright, it's connected up, so if I can get around all the lag, you should see that things are moving from this container, which they are, and then they should be making their way into these containers, which they seem to be, slowly filling up. You can see one of the ingot containers is filling. I don't know if there are enough ingots to actually fill more than one at the moment. But the rest of this is all just aspirational. This is something that I didn't explain before. Each of these dumpsters all have a unique ID, which is something that I'm going to keep track of and keep building on. They all have a number so that I know which one's which, and the systems, all of the naming in the systems are much easier. It took me a good hour naming everything in here, and it's not even that complicated. So as all of that sorts out and massively confuses... Oh no. I forgot about... It'll be stealing stuff from Mir. How about we just... Oh! Whoops. That's not what I meant. I meant to do this to the connector so that it would just break for a moment while I sorted out the... Oh. Well. I guess their ship's going to be floating for a minute. I didn't want to be stealing all of the stuff out of their ship. I didn't think about that they were parked on this station. I guess they're not connected anymore. I guess all their stuff is in there, and I'm currently stealing it all, but they're just going to have to repark their ship up into the red out. I might have to make another... Oh, so laggy. I might have to make another outline. Maybe just over here a little bit, or sticking out this way. I put it up on this side so that I could just tell Sal aim for the solar panels. I thought she'd appreciate that the most, and then make it very obvious which one's in and which one's out. But yeah, I might need more docking areas, maybe just some charging areas, but I'll talk about all of that next week. Hopefully this is all going to go all right, and I haven't annoyed them too much. Oh. What's all this? So there was some chat going on. There was some chat going on, and Minty is here. Well, I guess that's how next week's episode is going to start, so tune in for that. But that's all for this week, so I will see you again next week. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.